in that moment was to...
Whew, here we go. So you see this right here? You see it's like a lip. So we're having a girl. It's like I drink so much water. I have like a 24 pack of empty bottles of water in my car right now.
Then I started ripping the IVs out of my arm.
Call us back if you don't get better.
Do you hear what I'm just saying?
Oh, okay.
Like stupid me.
We're gonna talk a little bit about pregnancies, mom life, all the things. And I just thought this would be a really interesting thing to talk about because I get asked questions, but I also believe that you too are going through something. And I'm like, listen, I think this can be very relatable for you and maybe get you through something. So anyways, we're gonna chat a little bit about my first pregnancy, you guys. So I currently have 2 boys that are here on this earth. We had a stillborn daughter, but I also had a miscarriage. I don't think moms talk about this enough, or even if you've had a miscarriage or a stillborn and maybe your children are not here, you are still a mother. And that just makes me very happy to like think about for you guys, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that was me, you know? And I just know that it's not talked about, so you don't know how to get through it. And anyways, it's very, very tough. So my husband and I finally got to a place, like I got married at 22. He's 6 years older than me. And we were just both not at the place where we were like, yes, now's the time, right? We just knew we wanted time being married and being established, and we didn't have a lot of money anyways. And so we were like, kids cost a lot, so let's just wait a little bit. And so we waited, and then at 26 I was like, I think I'm ready. Like I think this would be really good. And so I remember us getting pregnant fairly fast. I think we tried for like a couple months of like actively, like I knew when I was ovulating, and then I got pregnant. And I remember taking a pregnancy test and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like it actually says positive. And you know what, back then it wasn't like take pictures of it and all that type of stuff as much as it is now. So I actually don't remember having a picture of that pregnancy test, but I did get pregnant, and we had like all the emotions and all the feelings, called the doctor. And at that time I didn't really know where I wanted to have my OB or anything like that. So I just was like, I'll just go to, you know, a well-known place around here and we'll just go and see. Well, I remember it being like one weekend, and we don't always do this, but I felt like I wanted to go like walk around. And so I was like, okay, let's go to the mall. Let's just like walk around, no big deal. And these are things that we occasionally would do. And so we went to go walk around, and I remember that afternoon I started cramping really bad. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? Why am I cramping so bad? And then I started bleeding. And so it was like, I think it was a Sunday. And so I started cramping really bad, like my period. And I thought that was really weird, obviously. And then I started bleeding. And so I was bleeding at home, and I was like, oh my, and I blamed myself, and I was like, I should have not have walked around the mall. I overexerted myself. Like I should have not have done that. That was so stupid. What is my problem? And so, but the whole time everybody's like, it's not because you walked too much. Like that's not what caused it, you know, but that's the only thing I could think about. I was like, if I just would have like laid down and rested, none of this would have happened. And so the next day we actually had not been to I actually think we went to our first appointment and confirmed the pregnancy, but then I went back so fast because I was like right at 8 weeks when I miscarried. And then we went back to the doctor, and they confirmed like there was no baby, no egg or whatever I think it's called. Like at that time, I don't know what they call it at that state. I think it's the egg, the sac. And they were like, you've already passed it. And I was like, what? I've already passed it? And I remember that day when I was cramping and started bleeding, I do remember it being very dark, but I don't remember it being like, but my periods were always very heavy anyway. So I was like, well, that's not anything new. Like, you know, I was like, obviously I know it's not good when you're pregnant to do that, but I was like, that seems like a period, like passing a lot of like blood through a period. And so anyways, they confirmed it. And we left and I was so upset and I was crying. But then my husband and I, there's a food place called Shea in our area. And it was like in the Charlotte area. And so we were like, do you want to go there and eat? Because he was already off work at that time for that appointment. And so I was like, okay, let's go eat. So we went to go eat after, which I cannot believe mentally I did that, like how, but we went to go eat. And then he had to go back to work and I drove my car and I had to go back home. But I should have never driven myself. If you ever go through this, don't drive yourself. This was the worst mistake ever. So I had to go back home and I was on like one of these back roads, like a long stretch. And I was cramping so bad that I don't even know physically how I made it back home. But it was the worst. It felt like knives just sticking in your gut. And I was like, oh my God, I was crying. I felt like I was going to vomit. It was the worst. And back then you don't have like this technology that we do now. It was like a flip phone, you know what I mean? And it was like, I just remember, I think I pulled over and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get home. And then that's all I remember. I don't remember an outcome. I just remember them being home. And then I just rested and I just was in the bathroom. I took medicine. I think I probably had ibuprofen. I mean, I don't have anything stronger than that. And the doctors were just like, rest. Like, this is going to be very painful because you're basically passing everything through. It was horrible, horrible. And I was just like, well, I guess this is just another statistic, right? Like, I guess it's just, this is what happens. And that's not, it's very common, but it's not just what happens. You can't stop it. And it's crazy. So I never knew, I didn't know I'd be upset about this, but I never knew. Anyways, I want to get through this really quick, but I didn't know how hard it would be. I've never been that upset about what happened because my story is crazy, but I was determined that we're going to be okay and we're going to try again and it's fine. Anyways, I've actually never cried about this pregnancy like this, so I don't know why this is like hitting so hard. But anyways, if you have ever been through that, I think it's harder and I get more upset. I'm basically by myself in the bathroom talking on camera, so of course I'm gonna cry. But I'm saying this because if you've ever experienced it, feel it and know it's not your fault and it's totally like going to be okay, you know? But rest, like that's the biggest thing I can say now looking back. It's like, I know we like want to pick up the pieces and keep moving on. Try again, and just like not process it, but process it and take time. I don't think I took enough time to deal, because I immediately, and you will, with all respect, you will want to jump back in and be like, I'm ready to try again. So anyways, I just wanted to share that, but I'm excited to share. I am excited because I know nobody talks about stillborns and openly, but we've experienced it. And I'm also dealing with a type 1 diabetes, which is I can't even think, a autoimmune disease. Those are the words I'm looking for. My brain is shot right now. But anyways, that's a little bit of part one of the open conversation and basically a series on becoming a mom. I'm just gonna pick up right where we left off, and that was last week that I recorded what you just saw. And yeah, we're back to a new day. I loved last week a lot, actually. Just, I felt like it was just really calming. I'm now referencing just recording in general. I recorded a video that I just did my makeup and I was storytelling. So, you know, I think that this conversation is heavy, but I also know that it's so needed from a woman to a woman, if you are going through anything like this, have been through anything like this, or potentially see yourself wanting to pursue motherhood, then I think that this is definitely just something that is going to allow you to have more of a deeper connection with, like, I need to advocate for myself. And that's just huge. And I know that more now than ever before. And, yeah, so after being diagnosed, you guys, well, I can't even talk about being diagnosed yet, because at that time I wasn't diagnosed as a diabetic. So I'm not even going to hit on that. I think sometimes the timeline gets a little confusing, but the thing is, I know the story. I know it because it's mine, right? I know it firsthand. I know it very well. And I actually replay this a lot in my brain. And I do talk about it a lot when it comes to my life. And that just happens to be like when I'm with family, when a conversation comes up like with a friend, when it's a reminder of something about our children. Do you know what I mean? It's just a reminder of, like, oh my gosh, so much. Okay, so anyways, here we go. So I had that miscarriage, and to be honest, most of that time period, because I didn't actively feel myself grieving at all. I just thought, oh, this happens. And I just moved on in a way, because all I could process is try again. That's all I could process. And so we were trying again. I do remember downloading a calendar that back then, this was before social media was what it is. So, you know how 2012 was. And so it's like, okay, you get this app on your phone. You can put in your menstrual cycle and it will tell you when you are ovulating. And I never knew that, I never knew what the signs were to look for ovulation or anything like that. So I was like, yeah, I definitely need this app, because if I want to obviously get pregnant again, I need to make sure I'm good with that. So, and we're actively trying in that time frame, not just like, because I think that's the way I do grieve, is not necessarily like when I think about it, I do decompress a lot. I just stuff it deep and I don't deal, and I just move on. And so I know I did that in that case too. And so I was like, no, we're just going to do it again. And that's what I looked forward to. I was just like positive in that way. And so I do remember it not taking long. And they do say you need to wait several weeks. I don't really actually remember the time frame for that, but I think the same, like just the healing of your body, your ovaries and things like that. You need to wait several weeks. And so, but anyways, we immediately were just like, when it was time, it was time. And I was like, so excited. And I was like, okay, is this the month? Is this the month? And so I do remember it not taking long. I don't know how long it took, but I do remember it not being long. And I had several pregnancy tests, and we took one and it was positive. And I remember back then, I mean, I can see the image vividly. I'm not going to share images and things. It's just too personal to that time. But I do remember vividly, like we had a brown comforter that was like from Bed Bath & Beyond. Those were like the places that you went. There was no, let me look at some trendy things on Amazon or whatever, and cutesy stuff. It was like, whatever Bed Bath & Beyond has, this is what you're gonna get. And so I do remember it was, I think, a part of our wedding registry. So we had this brown comforter, and we were married for several years trying for kids anyways. And I sat on the bed and I was like, I had a black dress on, and I was like, I want to sit on the bed and I want to hold my pregnancy test and let's take a picture. So we did that, and so I still have that picture. And so I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. And so I was like, I did everything I could during that time to just be very aware of everything I thought, you know what I mean? Like, as much as I could, what I'm eating, what I'm doing. I'm not like overexerting myself. because I just didn't want to, you know, experience what I had just experienced. So when we kept getting past these hurdles, I was like, oh, this is so good. It's happening. It's happening. And it was really exciting. And I do remember taking several pictures, like in front of a wall in our home. Oop, I did not want to do that color. In front of a wall in our house too. And I would have like a piece of paper that had like how many weeks I was and stuff. And I remember one being like 12 weeks and things like that. And I was like, this is so cool. And you could see my bump expanding and getting bigger. And I was always a smaller frame, so immediately you could start really seeing, you know, growth, you know. So I was like, this is so cool. So I would say the first trimester was like a typical trimester. I was very nauseous. Nothing could soothe any type of sickness at all. It was just like, I'll tell you the things that I was craving. I craved rice, just regular white rice with cream of chicken, Campbell's cream of chicken. So I would cook the rice on the stovetop, and then I would take that whole can of cream of chicken and I would add it to the rice, and I would put it in like a Tupperware dish because I couldn't eat all of it at one time. And I would eat that, y'all. It was the best thing I've ever had in my life. I was like, oh, this is so good. Like, it was just so good. It was so comforting. And then I would have like saltine, the white square saltine crackers. You know, I would eat those. And that especially in the morning, because I would wake up and I just like, I couldn't handle anything. Like, I was nauseous just getting out of bed. And everybody was like, you know, being nauseous is really good for you. It means that the baby is taking all the nutrients, right? Which means you're going to have a healthier baby. So I was like, this is fine with me. So those type of like reassuring things that I would hear, I'd be like, oh, this is good. This is good. This is good, you know? And then I remember always like throwing up, like constantly. I was still actively working, and my job at the time was still in cosmetics, but I was going to customers' homes. So I would pack up things at the house and I would get ready, like makeup, hair, a dress, a skirt, like be cute. But I got to a point too where I could not wear heels. I had to wear like sandals and some flats because I was just like overexhausted. And then I would go to a customer's house and I would be there. And then between like going there, I would be drinking things to soothe my stomach. I'd be eating crackers. Like, I was like, I actually feel so sick. I could stay in bed all day, but I kept pushing, you know, I kept going and going. And I just would not like rest, you know, because I had to work. I was like, we're about to have a baby. We got to work. And so, and I had, sales quotas and stuff like that too, like I had to meet. So I had things, not only like I needed to work, but like there were things like with my job that required me, if I didn't work, well, I would lose a lot, you know. So I couldn't just sit at a desk all day. And so those were really, really challenging times. And then I remember then is where like you would hear and see people doing like fun, like slice of cake, and the cake would kind of be like your gender reveal, you know, and people still do that, but people have really kind of like taken it to the next level. And so, which is really fun. I'm like, you know, be creative. It's cool. So my sister, she bakes. And so I was asking her, like, I loved leopard. I was like, leopard's so cute. And you know, I didn't know what I was having, but I was like, leopard can be kind of like gender neutral in a sense. So I remember Alan and I, we went to the doctor's appointment to find out what the sex of the baby was going to be. And I remember thinking at that appointment, we were like, what if it's a girl? But what if it's a boy? You know, and we'd never had a name in mind, really, but I did have one name picked out for a girl. I was like, if we have a girl, I always want this name. And if y'all remember, I can't remember the season number necessarily, but I do remember on The Bachelorette, and it may have been I think it was The Bachelor. I don't remember the guy actually at all that season, but I do remember that there was a girl on that season and her name was Tinley. And I was like, if I ever have a girl, like, I want to name her Tinley. I think that's such a beautiful name, and I loved how she spelled it. And I was like, okay, this is everything. Like, I definitely want that name. And so we went to this appointment, and you know, you couldn't go back then to like several appointments, and I guess it's still kind of like that, but now I feel like you can go to different centers or whatever and get like an ultrasound and just pay out of pocket. But there wasn't a lot of that back then that I knew of. So we waited until, I think I was wearing long sleeves and a sweater. So I'm trying to think of like, was it cold outside? But I think it was like November, I guess. Like, we found out that we were having a girl, so we went to that doctor's appointment. And I remember on the ultrasound, because we were both like so excited and so nervous, and she was like, we were like, what is it, and she was like, you see, because we found out in the room and the ultrasound, but then we like wanted to tell family and stuff all together. So she was like, okay, you see this right here, you see it's like a lip, there's nothing poking out. And we were like, so we're having a girl. Like, I was like, oh my, like, I just felt like, for whatever reason, like, my husband's family's very like male dominant, you know, and I was like, we're definitely gonna have a boy. Like, I just felt that. But when I found out it was her, I was like, this is crazy. And I'm such a girly girl, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be perfect, you know. And so I got really excited. And so we ended up like keeping the piece of paper, and then I think it was like the next day we had already planned, like, this is our doctor's appointment, so like the next day we're gonna come. Maybe it was the same day, y'all, maybe it was the same day, but it was very close, because I do remember after that doctor's appointment, I think it was the next day, I had a work meeting. Like, I had to go, you know, you show up, you have to show up, right? So I showed up, and I was actually helping somebody else out that day, but I was like, I'll be there. And I wore, I think it was a black dress again. I always wore black, but it was a black dress and a fuzzy little sweater thing. And it was so cute. Like, back then that was super like cute and trendy to have like a vest with like fur on it, and it was like faux fur, but it was so cute. And I wore those all the time with like a long sleeve shirt under it, or a sweater. And I had that on, so I basically had on like all black, but then I had 2 bracelets on, and they were like costume jewelry, like super tacky now when you think about it. But one was blue and one was pink. And again, I already knew what we were having, but I wore one blue, one pink. And then we had that event later that day. I was like, yeah, after this I'm gonna go and we're gonna do like the gender reveal. And so inside the leopard cake, it was gonna, my sister knew, so it was gonna be pink, like a little like brown with pink or brown with blue. And then we had like, the decorations were low-key. I'm like, what was I thinking? I knew nothing. I knew, like, when you also don't have a budget for things, like, your decor's a little sideways. So but we just had like cute little bags, you know, with like tissue paper out of them, blue and pink and stuff like that. And then we had the cake, and then we had a lot of food. Like, always my family's very good at, and we still are, like, we're gonna feed you. Like, come, you're gonna eat, don't worry. And we're gonna have leftovers for everybody to take something home. And so that was kind of the thing. And we ended up, you know what I just thought about? Is that I am so close to the camera right now, and I really wanted to use this footage to chop it up for Instagram as well. So I'm like, am I gonna still be able to do that? And I'm like so close to the camera. So I'm gonna sit back a little bit, so I'm not like, otherwise my face is gonna be the full frame of IG. Like, that's so annoying. So maybe this is better. We'll see. Because I can see myself here. Maybe you can see myself pretty well there. And so we ended up showing up or whatever, and everybody was there, like friends and family and stuff, and it was really awesome, and we felt so much love and support. And I remember cutting the cake, and we already knew, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, this is so freaking exciting. Everybody was like shocked, and then they were giving Alan a hard time, because, you know, I feel like
a lot of people give the dad a hard time because they're like, oh, good luck, you know? And so that always happens. You know what I mean? I'm like, I get it. It's fine. But I was just so extremely excited. And then immediately people were like, I have girl clothes. Like, you know, I would love to pass these down to you. And so we had people like just out of like everywhere, like I have girl clothes or whatever. And I was like, awesome. So I think like within the next several weeks, like, you know, Thanksgiving and then holiday parties were coming up and all that was happening. So after the gender reveal, we ended up doing something at my aunt's house at one time. And I don't know if this was before we found out that I was having a girl or not, but we went over there and I think it was something with Thanksgiving because we had pecan pie. Pecan pie literally is a weakness of mine and still is, but it will jack me up, y'all. But at that time, I'm eating whatever. I am a relatively healthy eater, but I'm eating like whatever, you know what I mean? I'm also having cravings and all this stuff. So I remember though having a pecan pie and going to the doctor the next day. And I'll also give you some history here. Even as a kid, after we would eat lunch, I would be asleep on the couch. Like Sunday lunch was for sure, like it would knock me out. And so I would eat and I would be like, I'm so tired, and I would go sleep. And so that's going to be something that you're going to want to know about in a little bit. So, and I would want to go sleep. And so I always remember that. And so after that pecan pie, I was like, I just feel tired and I am thirsty. Like I just wanted to drink all the time. So I remember every single time I got in my car, I drove this little white car. I think at the time, I think I maybe had a Jeep in my car at the time, but I always remember telling the doctor, so let's just get here, is that after that pecan pie incident, the next day I went to the doctor and I told them, and I was like, they were like, what did you eat yesterday? And I was like, I had pecan pie yesterday. And I was like, let me tell you something. I felt so tired. And I was like, and I'm thirsty. And I was like, I'm so thirsty all the time. And they were like, oh. And then nothing else happened after that. Like they would take my blood work, you guys. And I don't know if it was just because I was fasting or something, but I guess my blood work would come back regular. Like blood sugar and stuff like that. I'm like, surely they were testing it at that time. But I'll tell you, the hospital that I was going to then, it wasn't like I had a history with them necessarily. It was just kind of like what I knew. And I will tell you, the hospital, it was a university in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I would never recommend it if you were dying on your deathbed. And I'm not even joking you. It was the worst experience there in my life. But so they were like, what did you eat? I do remember that. And I was like, pecan pie, like so good. And I was like, but I just do remember me being really tired after. And I was like, and I am always thirsty. I was like, I drink so much water. I have like a 24 pack of empty bottles of water in my car right now. I was like, my floorboard has bottles of water. My seat has bottles of water, you know, everything. Like thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. I wake up, I pee through the night, like constantly. So remember this, guys, being tired, being thirsty, and constantly waking up peeing in the middle of the night. And at this point, I was probably like between 15 and 20 weeks when all this was kind of happening. And, you know, the excuse I would always hear is, well, you're pregnant. Like that's going to happen. The baby pushes on your bladder. First of all, my baby is not that big right now. So your baby's pushing on your bladder. Definitely signs of like, I can tell like, you know, these are pregnancy signs or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And so I just kept thinking like, this is normal. Like this is normal. And so I would leave those appointments and I would just be like, I would go on to my merry way. It wasn't like, well, watch what you eat. I mean, I'd heard none of that, you know? And so I always remember that appointment though, because I always felt like that was really strange, you know, for me to like have these symptoms and there be no reason I'm having these symptoms. You know what I mean? I'm like, is there a reason? Can y'all tell me some more or whatever? And so anyways, I remember just going on my merry way, and then they were like, we'll see you at your next appointment. You know, that was always kind of the thing, like, see you at your next, you know? It was never like, if anything's going on, let us know, you know, and they're always pairing you up with like a new doctor, so you never see the same doctor anyways. And so now we're getting into December. And so obviously you know what happens in December, right? It gets cold. And then there's winter parties. There's Christmas parties. So we had, I will say, we don't hang out with these people anymore, but there was a Christmas party going on, and Alan and I, it was an ugly Christmas sweater party, which are so fun, but we had nothing to wear, so we went to Goodwill and we got like some tacky sweaters, and I think I added some stuff to mine or whatever, and we went to this party. And I think even, yeah, I think before that, no, was it before or after? I think it was before. So we went to this party, and then at that party, it was fine. And then I was fairly, like, if you can imagine anyone that you've ever seen that's like 20 to 22 weeks pregnant, you see a little bump, but you don't see a bump. Girl, I looked 40 weeks pregnant. Like, I'm not even joking you. And again, I'm probably never going to show that picture publicly just because it's so sacred to us, to me, and it's just like very special. But, so anyways, I remember being like, looking back, and I was like, girl, my stomach was big. But we went to that party, and then I think the next day or a couple days later, we all went to this restaurant to go eat. And at the restaurant, one of their kids got sick at the table and just started throwing up. And then we were like, that's crazy, you know? Nobody's thinking anything about it. You're just like, you know, colds go around, people get sick, it's no big deal. And then days later, like the next day, you kept hearing people that went to the party are sick. So there was a stomach bug that went around, and I got sick. So Alan got sick as well. So here we are both very sick. I am very pregnant, obviously, and but you know, I'm just like, well, I'm gonna get a stomach bug, like it's gonna happen, it sucks, like let me just take care of myself. So all we did is like, we're just vomiting, and we're trying to keep food down, we're sleeping, you know, and Alan gets better. So like within like 24 hours, Alan is good. So he's back working, and I am not good. I'm the same as if I just got it that same day. And I remember so many times being pregnant with Tinley that I would be so tired that I would pass the heck out. Pass out so bad that Alan could not get me to answer the phone. So he would call my dad, and my dad would show up at my house banging on the door. Banging like someone's died. And I'm like, I was just sleeping. Like, you know what I mean? And so then our rule was, text me when you're going to sleep so I know. So, you know, I don't freak out or whatever. So anyways, we kept that open. But that happened several times throughout the pregnancy. But then, you know, I never got better. So I called my doctor. This is still at that university doctor. So I called them, and I was like, I'm so sick. I was like, I can literally not keep anything down. Like, I eat a cracker, I'm throwing up. My dad also was like, you know, bringing me, I think, like Sprite, ginger ale, different things like that, you know, because you always think when you have an upset stomach, like you want stuff like that, you know, to soothe your belly. And so they were like, well, just continue to, you know, stay hydrated, drink your drink, eat what you can, and just rest. A stomach bug is going around. Let me tell you who told me this. So when I'm calling the doctor, telling them this, y'all, so it was, let's just say it was a Tuesday. I think I'm getting my days very mixed up, but it was like earlier in the week. It's like Monday, Tuesday or something like that, because everything happened on the weekend. So I think it was like a Tuesday. And I was like, hey, I've been sick since this weekend. I'm throwing up. You know, everybody else is better. I'm not. Can I get a doctor's appointment to come in and see my doctor? I'm talking to the receptionist. This is what I mean by advocate for yourself. I should have just shown up there. So I called and she was like, hey, a stomach bug's going around. You know, just rest. Like, we really don't want you in the doctor's office because if you're sick, it can get other moms sick and people that are here. So, you know, just rest and call us back if you don't get better. Do you hear what I'm just saying? Like, when I say that out loud, I think, are y'all freaking idiots? I'm pregnant and vomiting nonstop, and sleeping like crazy. And so anyways, but I'm like, oh, okay, like, stupid me. I'm like, sure. And I'm calling like my mom, you know, and I'm telling her, and I'm talking to my friends and stuff, and I'm like, this is insane, y'all. And they're like, you're really not better? And I'm like, no, I am so sick. Like, I don't even know what to do. And so I call my doctor again. And I'm like, I need an appointment. And she's like, listen, we're not taking anybody that's sick, because they're an OBGYN. So they're not trying to have you come in, right? I guess because they're not like trying to help diagnose you, but you are my doctor because you're also taking care of my baby, right? So she said to me on the phone, she's like, okay, you're still sick. Call your primary doctor, go see them, and they can help you with that. Or, are you high? Are you high? Like, if I ever used that word back then, I wish, because I would have been saying that the whole freaking time. And so, I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, or no, then I hang up with her and I'm like, this isn't, I was like, they literally will not schedule me. Y'all, they would not schedule me to come in. And they actually said, the receptionist, out of her mouth, there was no, hey, talk to triage, nothing. It was, don't come here, go to your primary. So now it's Wednesday. So I'm like, great. I'm like, I have been vomiting since this weekend. I have called y'all and like called you Monday, called you Tuesday. Here we are. Now it's Wednesday. I'm calling my primary. And I'm like, listen, I am very sick. I cannot stop throwing up. I am pregnant. I don't know what is wrong with me. I need to come in. And they're like, this is the primary doctor that I grew up going to since I was young. And they were like, okay, come in, but why are you not going to your OB? And I'm like, they have told me not to come there, to come to y'all. And they're like, okay, just come here. Like, they were like, hands up, just come. So I was like, okay. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I can't drive. I physically cannot drive, but I have to take a shower. I was like, I smell. It is disgusting. I was like, I just need to wash my body. I'm gross, and brush my teeth. So I went and got in the shower. I was holding on for dear life. These are regular showers. Like, I have no like things to grab, but I am holding walls. I am leaning. I'm sitting down. I am very pregnant. I am very weak, and I'm still vomiting, actively vomiting. And my mom's like, I'm coming over to get you. I'm going to take you or whatever. And you know, you might be thinking, well, where was Alan? What was he doing? Well, he was at work. But also you think, okay, well, she has a bug. Like, I don't know. And she's calling her doctor, and, you know, he's just going to go into work. And I'm calling him and I'm like, Mom's coming to get me, you know. And he actually was on, oh, and let me tell you, I think it was like, oh gosh, I'm missing a really important part, is that he was on this like custom, if y'all don't know what my husband does, he has a fence company, and so he was on building a custom fence. And so yeah, I'm sick that weekend. That Monday, Tuesday, calling the doctor, doing all the things. I end up going, I think it was like Monday, and I went and brought him dinner to his shop, and I picked up Zaxby's, and I got like chicken strips or whatever. I went and picked up Zaxby's, and I was like, and I remember telling him, I was sitting there in his shop and I was still very sick. I wasn't as weak yet, but I was sick, you know, not feeling good. But I knew he needed dinner, and I was like, I'll be fine, let me go, whatever. And I told him, and I was like, Alan, I was like, Tinley is pissed off at me. And he was like, what's going on? I was like, I felt her kick so hard that I thought she was going to come through my stomach. I was like, she's kicking me so hard that she is angry at me. I was like, all I'm doing is vomiting. I can't even eat. She's so pissed. And he's like, that's crazy. And he was like, you know, we both were just like new to all of this. We have no idea what's happening. And so yeah, I'm calling. So then I still, all that stuff I just shared with y'all. And where's my powder? And so then my mom comes and she gets me Wednesday. And she's like, I'm going to take you. So she ends up coming and getting me. And so, again, this is like 2 days after I felt her go crazy in my stomach. And so I go to the doctor, and I barely can walk in, and they just go like, you know how like you have to sit in the waiting, check in, sit in the waiting room, and then you wait a few minutes, they call your name, and they open up the door, right? They didn't do that. I went to the desk, and they were like, what are you even doing here? And I was like, I don't know, but I need somebody to see me. I'm so freaking sick. They were like, go back. Take her to a room now. Take her to a room now. You could see the panic on their face. And my mom is like, I don't know what to help us, right? So I immediately go back in one of the rooms, and they're like, put on the gown, you know, let's check you out. So I put on the gown, and then I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw up right here. And so I was just thinking, I was like, I'm gonna actually throw up right here, like right here, right now, you know? And so my mom like held the back of my gown, took me to the bathroom. It was like right across the hall, and I started throwing up. But I was sitting on the toilet, I was throwing up, I was sitting on the toilet, like I could not, nothing would stay in my body. That doctor opened up that bathroom door. He was like, you're not staying here, the ambulance is on the way, they are coming to pick you up. No, the ambulance didn't come there actually. I think they said that was an option, but they were like, or can you take her fast? And mom's like, I'm gonna take her. So I went, I had on the gown still, and so then I went, I went in mom's van, and then she immediately ran me to University Hospital he's like, I'm calling, like they know you're coming. You cannot, this is an emergency. And so, I pull up there, they already know I'm coming, they're outside, they grab my, they get a wheelchair, they grab my chair or whatever, and they get me inside, and, my mom parks the car or whatever, so then they have me kind of sitting to the side for a second, and then, I'm like in the waiting room kind of, but not, and I'm just like waiting on the next, like, room or something, and then it's like boom, 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 very quick. I wasn't there long, but then they're like, what's going on, blah, 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 and then my mom's kind of telling them, y'all, I'm so lethargic, I can't even think straight, and they're so worried. They're like, I don't know what's going on with this woman, and she's pregnant, this is crazy, like, we gotta get her checked out. So they find a room, and then they immediately take me, and these were my symptoms now. Okay, here's Wednesday. My chest was so heavy and so tight, I couldn't breathe. I could not breathe. Y'all, it was the most horrific thing. You feel like you're dying. And so, and I don't even know what to think or say. I'm just like, now I'm at the hospital, but actually in the emergency room at the hospital, OB that told me they didn't want me to come here, you know. Now I'm just pissed, and I'm like, I've been calling this place, you know. And so then I find a room, they go and they do a chest scan of my chest to see what's going on. Then they put me inside the emergency room, and I'm sitting there for a while. They start doing IVs and stuff and checking everything, and I just remember thinking, where's my doctor? Where is the freaking doctor? Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. And so my mom also is thinking the same thing. At this point, Alan's already made it there, and family members have been called, like, Amber's in the emergency room, she's very sick, we don't know what's going on. His parents live out of town. They're already on the road on the way up. Just everybody's being called. His brothers are showing up. People are just showing up. So I start seeing people, aunt and uncle, stuff like that in the hallway. Because, you know, like an emergency room, I don't know how they're all set up, but you have like rooms, and then you have like a curtain over your glass or whatever, and I could like see people and know like, okay, family's here. Okay. They took me upstairs and they did an ultrasound. The girl, when I tell you, silent as the sweetest little spring day before the birds wake up, silent. You could hear a dust fall. You could hear it. And I said to her, and I'm very much this personality, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? You hear her heartbeat? Like, what's going on? What's she doing? As she's doing the ultrasound. Because I'm asking about my daughter that's in my stomach right now. And she's like, yeah, you know, I can't say anything. They're going to have to read it and kind of whatever. And so I'm kind of thinking, well, that's normal. That's kind of normal. People say that all the time. And I'm looking, and you can see things like moving around, but that's like my stomach or whatever. And so then they wheel me back to my room. And at this point, everybody's just worried. They're just super, super worried. And I'm like, they couldn't tell me anything or whatever. And I was like, still, I haven't seen my doctor. Don't know where my freaking OB doctor is. Where is my doctor? Still nowhere to be found. A girl comes in, and I think the doctor of what doctor came in? There was a doctor, but it wasn't my doctor. That's the problem. And I think at one point we saw him pass my room, and he still didn't come in. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? He still didn't come in. And another doctor came in, and they said, listen, he had great bedside manner, just as calm as he could be. And he's like, listen, I just want to tell you, he said, your blood sugar is so elevated. For over 3 months, it's been so elevated at like 300 that's off the charts. Like, I'm surprised you're living right now. And you've been living with this like for months now, weeks. Like, this is crazy. Like, no telling what it did before that, you know what I mean, through the pregnancy. And he's like, and we have no heartbeat. Your daughter has passed. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, that is insane. The only thing I wanted, the only thing I wanted in that moment was to die and just not feel anything again. That obviously was the worst news I had ever had, ever. And I was angry that I started ripping the IVs out of my arm. And then I remember a girl, a nurse that was in there, and everybody was in shock. I was so mad. And I was like, I don't even want to live. I don't even want to ever be here. And I was just cussing, and I was angry. And I thought, how did this happen? I was like, this never would have happened if y'all did your job. This never would have happened. And they gave me the strongest drugs, because now at this time they're trying to save my life. And we left that hospital. They put me in an ambulance, and we went to the best hospital. I don't know why I didn't go here in the beginning. Northeast Medical Hospital, which is now Atrium Health. I think it's in like Cabarrus County area of North Carolina. And they took me in an ambulance over there. I remember being like in and out of it. I wasn't even crying anymore. I was numb. And they took me there, and they took me because there were no rooms available at the university hospital. And so they took me to this other hospital, and they took me to ICU, and I was in ICU, I think for maybe like 12 hours or a day or something like that. And they did a lot of testing, and they were trying to open up a room for me to make it very calm for me. And because this was going to be a very traumatic experience moving forward. And I just remember thinking, I cannot do it. I can't go on. At that point, I was over 22 weeks. I had not had the sugar test from the doctor yet, and it was already scheduled. It was on the calendar. I was getting, you know, reminders and stuff, so I knew that was coming up. But I didn't even make it to that point yet because I was already misdiagnosed. Nobody knew, is what they say. So this is part 1. And I'm gonna stop here. It's a lot, and I'm gonna take you through the experience of having a stillborn, during it, what happened after when I left the hospital with not having her, and having a new diagnosis, having to deal with this now. You know, we'll talk about that soon. And my other pregnancies are wild as well. You know, it's really crazy, and it's very hard. So thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. And I don't know. Anyways, I love you. Thanks.